Good morning, everybody. So today we're talking about refunding the police, which is no doubt a touchy subject. I think one of the reasons it's such a touchy subject is because people don't agree on what it means or what it should mean. So I thought I'd share a story of my own with you today about how I came to understand what refunding the police means. You see, a couple of years ago, I was actually in school learning to become a police officer. I ended up there because during a service here, during a meditation actually, I was thinking about helping people and how I always wanted to help people. And I had a picture come into my head of me as a police officer. Not totally surprising now that I look back at it. My grandfather was a police officer back in the day. And when I was growing up, the police were held up as the main source of community help. But when I was in school, I found that we weren't learning much about helping people, not the way that David was helped in Grenadier Park. Mostly, we were learning to be very careful about what we did and said to avoid being accused of abusive behavior. I specifically remember being told that there would be times, many times, as police officers, where you would be called to a house or to an apartment for a disturbance, and there would be people there who are struggling with something. Maybe it's with their mental health or something else that you can't really see. And I remember being told that we had to be extra careful in those cases because police aren't trained to handle those situations the way that someone like a social worker is. But because emergency social workers and mental health professionals are so rare, the police would be called. And I know the truth of that very well because it happened to me when I was a teenager. Have you ever heard the saying, if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail? Have you ever wondered what it means? It means that you can't fix everything with one tool. Have you ever tried to fix a cracked pane of glass or a hole in your bucket with a hammer? It doesn't work. In fact, when you use the wrong tool to try and fix something, it often makes things worse. Well, I started to feel that way about what I was being taught. That the police were a hammer that our society was using to try and fix problems that hammers just aren't meant for. That's when I decided it wasn't for me. So I got myself switched to a community service worker program, which, while not exactly a social worker, was a step further in that direction. And it was in that program that I first heard the words defunding and refunding the police, approximately a year and a half before the Black Lives Matter movement made it a common phrase. And what I was told about it then was that it wasn't about getting rid of the police system entirely. It was about taking a chunk of the police budget and spreading it out to other things, training more emergency social workers, and making programs that would team those workers up with police, creating more housing and learning programs. It was never about throwing away all of our hammers, but about spending less on hammers and more on other tools so that we can start actually fixing more problems.